Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric E. Lopkin. And Dr. Lopkin, a momentous moment. In my own lifetime, I think the only thing that would possibly equate to that is the assassination attempt of Reagan in 1980. We can talk more about that because there is some tie-ins. But your thoughts on the assassination attempt? I'll just give you free reign, whatever. One thing before you go and give your insight and analysis that we all like to hear. I say it's game over. We'll start with that. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah,
Please.
There's a lot of indications that this is now game over for the Democrats.
Game over.
And, I have been a reporter on and off for 35 years at this point, maybe even a little longer. And I've covered a lot of stories. You and I were on the air the day that the Sandy Hook tragedy took place. Never in my life did I think I would be reporting on a attempted presidential assassination. These don't happen. These don't happen often. Again, the last one was Ronald
44
Reagan.
years ago.
Yes. Prior to that, the last one before that was John F. Kennedy.
No, actually, Dr. Lopkin, it was Gerald Ford. Just to be a dork.
Okay,
but you're right,
I don't.
JFK.
Oh, okay.
Squeaky Fromm did it in '76, but it was a stupid thing. It's not. I'm just throwing it out there, being a dork.
Okay.
But yes, it was JFK. You are correct.
I mean, this is not something that happens, and for the country to get to the point where someone actually thinks it's okay to take this shot is absolutely appalling. The Republicans took the lesson to heart. They are now talking about unity. They are talking about how they have to not just bring the party together, but they have to bring the country together.
Correct.
The Democrats talked about unity for about 24 hours.
About 24 seconds, but we'll go. Yeah, yes, that's fine.
and then they went back to calling Trump Hitler and saying he has to be stopped. He's a threat to democracy. On MSNBC,
I need to ask you this. I don't mean to interrupt. I need to ask you this. I'm sure our listeners will want to hear that. Do you think after the assassination that argument is completely debunked? Goodbye. Check, please. It falls. In fact, I think it could be a negative attribute. How do you like that? Your thoughts, Dr. Lopkin?
Well, I think it's because
I don't think it resonates. I think it's bullshit.
I think even before the assassination attempt, it was falling on deaf ears. I mean, basically, if you're a diehard MSNBC viewer, you might believe it. But everybody else has been sort of moving away from that. Certainly, if you look at all of the polls, the electorate does not believe this. They actually believe in numerous polls that Trump will be better served to protect democracy than Biden is. So that argument was falling apart before this happened. Now, it's absolutely ludicrous. And I find it amazing that the Democrats do not believe that their own rhetoric had anything to do with this. When you say for 8 years, remember, because they were doing this as soon as he started running for president in 2016.
As soon as he went down the escalator, yes.
When you start saying that this man is a threat, that he's a foreign agent, that he's working for Russia, that he's Hitler, a disturbed mind is going to latch on to this. And worse, when you do it with absolutely no evidence,
Well, I think that's a really good point because you look at MSNBC, you look at Morning Joe. Again, you've been in media for a long time. Good inclinations about things. First of all, Morning Joe taken off. That shows you they have no faith in that numbnuts broadcast keeping it together. Right, and that like a month later, essentially 70 or 48 hours later, keeping it together. And I would have to say MSNBC, I'm not so sure there's not going to be a reformation on that. I mean, they were actually criticizing Trump for wearing, I don't know what you call, a gauze pad on his ear. Dude, he got hit by freaking, like, you out of your mind?
Yes, MSNBC has already gone back to criticizing Trump, actually saying that this whole thing has been exaggerated. I would like to see one of these guys take a bullet, even just grazed, and see how well they deal with it. As for
wait a second, I love that. I love that point. I know, Dr. Loppin, I love that. Morning Joe, Mr. Brass Balls himself with the camel glasses and blah blah. He gets grazed by a bullet. You think he'd still be in the mental hospital? That's a rhetorical question, by the way. There you go.
Yeah, none of these guys could do what Trump did.
Never.
And I mean, yes, fortunately, Trump was just grazed. And it is a minor miracle that he was just grazed, because it was not that hard a shot, from what I've been told by people in the know. So the fact of the matter is, he happened to turn his head at the last moment. And if he hadn't done that, we would be talking about a successful assassination.
And what ramifications, Dr. Lopkin, what ramifications, given the video, the technical evidence about the complete F-up of the so-called Secret Service, I have to say a lot of people would think it was a government takeout. I mean, you have someone on the roof.
I think had it been successful, conspiracy theories would have gone wild. And I don't think any amount of fact would have been enough to stop the conspiracy theories at this point. It's gotten that
bad.
Conspiracy
theories leading to results. It wouldn't just be like a JFK and people have chat rooms about it, that's 60 years ago, blah, blah, blah. This would be a national emergency. How do you like that?
Yes, I think it would be. Getting back to what happened with Morning Joe. On Sunday, Joe Scarborough was told that he was going to be taken off the air because all NBC feeds, NBC, MSNBC, CNBC, during that time was going to be showing an NBC News special covering the assassination. That was what he was told Sunday. Monday morning rolled around, and he was the only program that they took off the air. CNBC had their regular programming. NBC had their regular programming. Morning Joe was the only show taken off the air for this special coverage. And it is because they did not trust Joe Scarborough not to make matters worse. And
100%. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
What amazes me, though, is that they took him off the air, but not Joy Reid.
I mean, I have to still ask you this. I asked you this before. The effect on MSNBC and your analysis, I think it's huge, and I'm dead serious about
that. I think MSNBC's about to go through a reformation. We're starting to see changes in the media landscape as a whole. The far left, over the past several weeks, since the debate, but it actually got worse after the assassination attempt, the far left has been criticizing CNN because CNN, in their opinion, has been too centrist. They've been too interested in actually telling facts. So
Interesting.
CNN is already starting to turn itself around. MSNBC, I think, as CNN makes more progress and they start taking away MSNBC's viewers, MSNBC is basically left with the radical left.
Psychos.
Yeah.
Insane people. And basically, wait a second. If you're a psychiatrist looking for clients, you know, you do a lot of marketing consulting. I would get the list of MSNBC viewers, and that would be a very rich target area for potential clients, correct?
Yeah, it is absolutely amazing how CNN has been covering this whole thing from their job on the debate to their coverage of the assassination. They have been covering this like true journalists, where MSNBC all of a sudden they again lasted till about Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, there you go.
And then went back to attacking Trump and you know, in some cases, they've actually claimed that, oh, they're exaggerating this whole thing.
Yes, I think their credibility, it was already on a descend. I actually think we've been talking about this for a while. I'm not a big fan of CNN. I think if they get their shit together, could come out of this pre-debate and post-debate and post-assassination in much better shape. Although the New York Times, you know what their online headline was? Trump falls.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot.
They just didn't quite put the bullet in, that's all.
Yeah, there was a lot of left-wing coverage of this. And fortunately, there's been a lot of backlash to that coverage where they refused to say he was shot. They refused to call it an assassination attempt. And fortunately, the general public had backlash to this. They went, are you kidding me? The people are starting to realize just how skewed the news they've been getting has become. And they're standing up against it. They want facts. They want to know what is going on without the media bias. And that I think is what the main reason that CNN is turning itself around and starting to recover, because they've gotten rid of a lot of their bias in favor of straightforward news. I mean, even some of the
if
folks,
they run with it,
yeah, even
if
some
they
of
run
the
with
folks
it, they need to get rid of, like, go ahead, sorry.
Even some of the folks that they've kept around, like Jake Tapper, who was very far to the left, on the air, he has kept it together. He has focused on news. Same thing with Dana Bash. The two of them did a fantastic job at the debate, and the CNN's on-air talent has been very good at realizing, wait a minute, we've lost our audience. We need to regroup and we need to focus on facts. And they're actually doing it.
100%. So I think it may be the tale of two cities. CNN, which was spiraling, maybe will find Jesus, so to speak. And I think MSNBC is just too blown out. It's never going to happen. One thing I completely, well, before we get into that, let's look at the Secret Service, okay? I remember when I was, I think, in elementary school, read a book about the Secret Service. I was like, wow, 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 you know, all this kind of. So, not quite the same goals as it used to be. And let me explain something to you, Dr. Lopkin. You look at the videos of 1980 with the Secret Service when Ronald Reagan had the assassination attempt. You saw, I'm sorry to say, guys with Uzis, and you do not mess with them. It was taken down in 1 second, okay? Then you fast forward, 44 years later, and you got the DEI Secret Service. You have a woman that was hiding behind Donald Trump. Don't listen to me. Look at the picture. While the assassination attempt was going on, you had these two women. One of them couldn't find their gun holster. The other one was adjusting their sunglasses. Okay, sunglasses are cool. I get it. It goes back to the movies. But you really should be more thinking about maybe a possible other gunman before you adjust your GQ classes. However, the head of the Secret Service, not quite dedicated to protecting people and counter, looking at our currency, but is committed to at least 30% of all Secret Service agents being women. And also, I got to give her credit because I like a boss that, looks over my own well-being. And why would you subject a Secret Service agent to go on a pitched roof? I have a friend that's a roofer, and I said, you could make a lot of money, Craig. Just go to apply this at the Secret Service and say, listen, I've been a roofer for 40 years. I'll do it for $200,000 a year. There you go. A pitched roof. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
I don't think the assassin cared about the pitched roof.
No, clearly he didn't. What has gone on with the Secret Service, and unfortunately, we're seeing this across government agencies, and we've seen it, we've talked about it in businesses as well. The focus on DEI has made them less effective. And what's truly frightening about this moment in time is that prior to the assassination attempt, the Secret Service was ordered to increase security on Donald Trump because our intelligence agencies got wind of a credible threat to his life from Iran. Now, this assassination attempt had nothing to do with Iran. This was a lone wacko. But they were told that Iran was going to attempt to assassinate Donald Trump. They needed to step up his protection. And
so you're saying this was their A game?
Yeah, this is the
this
stepped
is the A
up.
game.
Yeah, this is the stepped up Secret Service. That is terrifying.
It's beyond terrifying. It's sad because someone lost their life. And if she doesn't resign, first of all, the election was already going bad. I don't think he has the brains. I don't even know if he knows what day it is. But if he doesn't fire her, there are also political ramifications for Uncle Joe, correct?
Yes.
You got to show some balls.
The head of the Secret Service has already been subpoenaed by the House subcommittee to testify about what went wrong during the protection of Donald Trump. So we're going to see this dissected and see exactly what happened. And I mean,
well,
what's going to happen with her job? I don't know. Honestly, I don't think Biden will fire her.
Of course not.
He hasn't fired anybody, no matter how bad a job they do.
Jill was a big proponent. That means that Jill won't give him the oats and won't give him Wheaties in the morning. So that's never going to happen. But did you notice, it's another topic that we'll be getting into, but before you is really interesting about Black Twitter and Black social media blowing up. Now Trump is gangsta. And I heard a great guy, an African-American guy. I love this stuff. I find it inspiring, and that's the truth, because they've been exploited by the Democratic Party. They were rising up, and now it's Katie by the barn. But it's really interesting that this guy was saying, okay, class, where do we see the difference? And he had the first, the Trump rally with the DEI women, and gee, they would send shivers down my spine, but that's another issue. And he goes, what do you notice different about the RNC convention. Guess what? They're all men. There you go.
Well, no, they're not.
I think they were.
The RNC has been talked about on social media over and over again by African Americans, by Hispanics, by women, talking about the fact that when they're watching the convention, they're amazed
No,
at
no,
the
no.
diversity.
I'm sorry. It might have been my bad. I'm talking about the Secret Service protection.
Oh, okay.
So you went from DEI to now it's what it used to be. And I'm sorry, there's things that women do better. Okay? I'm sorry, when you're 5'5", you're not going to lift Donald Trump, who's 6'2" and 250 pounds. No, at the RNC, the protection squad was like it would be in 1980. And
right,
to your point,
the RNC protection, though, isn't strictly the Secret Service. Yes, Donald Trump still gets Secret Service protection there, but the Republicans had to arrange for at conventions, they have to arrange for their own security. So the Democrats arrange for the DNC security. Republicans arrange for the RNC security. They coordinate with the Secret Service and the FBI.
Okay, I got it. That's good. Good clarification. But I did mention that Black social media is exploding. They were already bleeding Black support. It was close to 25%. There are Black people. Again, it's only social media. I was never going to vote for the guy. That guy's he's ghetto, man. I'm there, dude. So they're not only bleeding other constituencies, in particular Hispanics, but I think it's easily within the realm of over 25% Black males voting for Trump. Do you agree or not?
Yes, we've seen that trend going on for several months already. The Democratic Party has been bleeding minority support, primarily because people are going, wait a minute, we've supported them for years, and what have they actually done for us? Nothing. There's only so much lip service you can pay. And I had actually just pointed out to somebody the other day, back in 2000, there was a show on the air, a sitcom called Sports Night, written and produced by, blanking on his name, Aaron Sorkin, who is a very big Democratic supporter. He's, a big supporter of liberal causes. There was a scene in this show, and remember, this is 2000, where the head of the program of Sports Night, which was played by Robert Guillaume, who most people remember him from Benson and Soap.
Yep.
Was asked by one of the other characters, where does he donate his money? And he said, well, I used to give it to the Democratic National Committee. They said, you don't anymore? And he said, when you get your heart broken enough times, you stop. This is
100%.
This is 2000.
How terrified are the Democratic elites over this? I think they're terrified. You had a rapper, 2 nights ago, saying that she investigated Trump and he's not, and she belongs with the MAGA group. You had her also doing a rap video. It just goes on and on and on. I think sometimes something's an illusion. This is no illusion. I think it's a real groundswell. What do you think?
It is, and you asked, how the elites are reacting. If you take a look, just over the past, we talked about part of this on last week's podcast. The Manhattan Borough president, the Democrat, has said New York is a battleground state now. Adam Schiff, congressman from California, who's running for Senate in California, said point blank, if they don't get Biden off the ticket, they are all going to lose. Schiff, meanwhile, is being out fundraised by his Republican opponent, who happens to be Steve Garvey, former Dodger player.
Yes.
So,
and by the way, it's very apropos that you mentioned that, because I just saw a little excerpt. Yes, Schiff is still favored, but it's not a given anymore. It's actually not a given.
No,
that's
there
actually,
is a very strong. Yeah, there is a very strong possibility that Steve Garvey will take that senatorial race. And I mean, at the beginning, nobody thought he was a long shot.
Not even
nobody.
Close.
And in fact, the way, I don't know if all of our listeners are familiar with the way California runs its primaries, but everybody has to run in the same primary, Democrats and Republicans. And the top two vote getters, regardless of what party they are part of, go head to head in the general election. Nobody expected Steve Garvey to survive the primary. They thought it was going to be Schiff and another Democrat running against each other in the general. The fact that Garvey beat every other Democrat in the primary shocked people.
Again, I think this, and by the way, speaking of shocking and CNN, oh God, I'm having a Biden moment. He's the political guy on CNN. Name escapes me. He did the map. This is CNN, and this is not, basically smoking pot. I saw it with my own eyes. This is CNN. Basically, it's very within reason that Trump gets 322.
That
electoral votes.
I hadn't heard that.
Yes, it is. It is a real broadcast. I saw it with my own eyes. Did he guarantee it? But here's the killer. Even without certain things that, the blue wall, all that stuff, right now, he's at 272. Kind of almost given.
Yeah, so, it is becoming harder and harder for Biden to find a path to victory. And this week, not even talking about the assassination attempt, this week made it even harder, because at the RNC, you've seen the diversity present in the Republican Party, and that is resonating with Hispanics, with women, with African Americans. So they're chipping away at the traditional Democratic base. But then you had the nomination of J.D. Vance from Ohio as vice president. J.D. Vance is very capable of bringing with him Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, the entire Rust Belt. That shatters that blue wall that Biden was counting on.
100%. And may I ask you a question for my own edification? I love entertainment, okay? And I will be still having my summer off at that particular point in time. Now, I know my own plans, but Dr. Lopkin, are you going to have some popcorn during the debate between J.D. Vance and Mamala? Must-see TV.
They have already agreed that August there will be a debate between J.D. Vance and Kamala Harris, and Kamala Harris's former communications director has said about J.D. Vance that he is Kamala's worst nightmare. Kamala's own former communications director expects J.D. Vance to wipe the floor with Harris.
It will be, do you know what it's going to be? A boxing metaphor. You just throw in the towel. If I was like Mamala's handler, I would just say, actually, I might cut off or just throw water in the amplifier and just say, oh, it's too bad we can't go on any further and call it a day. Are you kidding? A cackling moron with an IQ of like 80? I mean, it's got to be must-see TV.
Especially if they have rules that mimic the presidential rules, where she can't have notes, she can't confide in any staff members. That's going to be very interesting, because J.D. Vance, the main criticism that he has to overcome is leadership, because he was only in the Senate for a little over a year. He'll be in for about almost 2 years at the time of his election. So there's questions about his leadership. Now, if you look at Vance's history, there's no question about his leadership. He was United States Marine. He was a successful venture capitalist. I mean, he's got leadership qualities.
He grew up the bottom of the barrel. Statistically, he had no chance of making it. Zero. And he did everything on his own. That's leadership. And the other thing, let me just interject, and I want your opinion. You think J.D. Vance is going to get flustered in a debate with Mamala? He grew up basically not knowing if he was going to live.
Right. J.D. Vance went through horrific circumstances growing up, and I highly recommend read his New York Times best-selling biography, Hillbilly Eulogy. You can also, for those of you who aren't big readers, Netflix made it into a movie. Jump on Netflix and watch it. And over the past several days, the book has been going back up the Amazon bestseller list. The Netflix movie has been going up their most watch list.
I didn't even think of that.
People are very interested in this. They want to know more. The fact of the matter is, J.D. Vance has the upbringing that Biden lies about having.
Whoa, Dr. Eric E. Lopkin. I've never thought. That is brilliant. Awesome. 100. Yeah, because he's just full of shit. His father, they were the living room table. That was all bullshit. This guy actually lived it. And by the way, Laura Ingraham had an excerpt from his book, and I did look at the movie. Could bring you to tears, quite frankly. And she had an excerpt saying, I can't do it justice, but basically talking about where he came from, essentially saying these people, or many people, or everyone calls these people white trash, but they're my brothers. I mean, it's like,
yeah, I mean, for those of you who are not familiar with J.D. Vance's background, just a quick summary. He grew up dirt poor. His father abandoned the family. His mother was addicted to drugs. They were so poor that some months they did not have enough food for both him and his mother. From that upbringing, he worked to get himself into Yale Law School.
The real way, by the way.
Yes. Grew up, kicked ass in school, and made something of himself. Graduated from Yale Law School. Wrote a best-selling book. Then, after 9/11, joined the United States Marines to defend this country.
How is Mamala going to be even on the same stage? I mean, that is just it's unbelievable.
And after leaving...
And by the way, one thing about you talk about the comparison of Uncle Joe to him. Top of the class at Yale Law School. Uncle Joe, I think, suspended for a semester for plagiarism. The bottom of his class at Syracuse University, not exactly Ivy League. Sorry, I'm just telling you.
Yeah, there's a big difference between these folks.
Huge difference.
And after leaving the Marines, he went into business and became a successful venture capitalist.
It's not looking good, is it?
This guy, he knows discipline. He knows sacrifice. He knows what the poor in this country actually go through. He is the first candidate for president or vice president that knows what it is like to grow up poor, quite possibly since Carter might have, but it might not even be, it might even go
Not to
back
the same
further
level.
than him. Yeah, not to the same level. We have not seen this. J.D. Vance is the personification of the American dream, where we've told kids any American can grow up to be president. People didn't expect J.D. Vance to be able to survive his childhood, and he is
No, he
now
was going to be.
he is now the nominee for the second most powerful position in the country.
And let me just interject something because you had a great point. Love it, love it, love it about Uncle Joe compared to him. But how about Mamala? Mamala claimed she was disenfranchised and no, her father was a professor. Really? Ain't gonna fly. He'll blow that out of the water. It's not even close.
Yeah, Kamala did not grow up poor, did not grow up disenfranchised. She's also lied about her background, making, I remember when she grew up
on the bus, she drove the bus. She was on the
bus to school, and she grew up listening to this music. The artist hadn't started recording until Kamala was a grown-up. So neither one of the Democratic candidates has been exactly honest about their background. Not only has J.D. Vance been honest about it, he wrote a book about it. It's been well documented.
You bring up a point that needs to be, again, further addressed because it escaped me. Won't be the first time. I didn't even think of that. So you're saying his book is resurfacing? It's back on Netflix? Is that true? That's
well, it never
been reported.
Yeah, it never left Netflix. The movie has been on. It's a Netflix original, so it's been on Netflix this entire time since they came out with the movie. But now it is the number 6th most viewed program on Netflix this week.
Let me interject one thing really quick. After he gives his speech, I believe it'll be in the top 3. How do you like that one?
Oh, I fully expect it to keep climbing, both the book and the movie, because people want to know, who is this guy? He's not well known. And what's reported in the media, of course, MSNBC, CNN's prior coverage has been so distorted because he came out. They've painted him as the ultra right-wing MAGA. Well, it's also important to point out he was not a Trump supporter when Trump ran for president.
Can I interject something with that? I think everyone talks about that's something that he has to cover. I think it's a positive. It's like, yeah, I thought the guy, just like many of you out there, I thought he was an asshole. I thought he was a Nazi, blah, blah, blah. And guess what? I think that blows up in MSNBC's face. Dr. Lofton?
Well, it's not just J.D. Vance. If you take a look at the statements and the speeches this week, okay, you've already had Vivek Ramaswamy, who ran against Trump, in the primary, and when he pulled out, supported Trump. You have Ron DeSantis, who also was not a Trump supporter, coming out for him. You have Nikki Haley point blank telling her delegates to vote for Donald Trump. The Republican Party has not been this unified since 1984.
Correct. And you know who said that? George Will, who was not, and you can tell, I'm not being, metaphysical here, but you can read his body language. He was interviewed on News Nation, basically saying exactly what you just said, Dr. Eric E. Lofton, and you can read the body language that he's now on the Trump team. And he was totally against Trump.
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of that. We've talked about this over the past several months. Actor and comedian Michael Rappaport, who railed against Donald Trump, is now a Trump supporter. Many people in Hollywood, you saw Elon Musk who has come out in favor of Trump, you are seeing Silicon
45
Valley.
million a month, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
45 million a month.
Elon Musk has pledged $45 million a month to the America First super PAC that is supporting Donald Trump. But it's not just Elon Musk. Silicon Valley executives who 6 months ago it would have been anathema for them to come out publicly supporting Trump. They are supporting Trump. Silicon Valley venture capitalists who, again, you could have been ostracized from Silicon Valley 6 months ago for saying you were a Trump supporter. They are coming out in favor of Trump.
And now there's also the venture capitalist, a Jewish guy. I really liked him because he was at the forefront of the anti-Semitism at his alma mater, Harvard. And I'm sorry, I forgot his name.
And you're talking about Bill Ackman.
Yes, he's also on the Trump train.
Yes, Bill Ackman has also come out. He right now he's best known for his fights against anti-Semitism, but Bill Ackman is a major investment banker. He's a venture capitalist, and he has come out because the Democrats, quite frankly, have spread so many lies, and now they're falling apart. I mean,
well, it's interesting that you bring him up. A very successful, highly educated, highly intelligent Jewish American. And tonight, they're talking, a lot of it will be on international relations before Vance makes his speech. And a lot of it will feature Israel. So we talk about black media, social media exploding. Are the Jews finally leaving the reservation?
A lot of them are. Recent polls have shown a surge in popularity for Donald Trump among Jewish voters, particularly those in New York City. There's a big
and New York
difference.
City is now in play. I mean, New York is in play.
Yes, New York, according to the Democrats themselves, is now in play. They could lose New York State. And there is a big difference between what the Democrats have said regarding anti-Semitism in Israel and what the Republicans have said. The Republicans have come to the defense of Israel against Hamas, against Iran, with no condition. The Democrats, every time they say, oh, we have to stop anti-Semitism, they always follow that up with, and anti-Islamophobia. And they always
it's a way of saying bullshit. Yes.
Yes. They always have to cover themselves and go, oh, well, we have to, fight against Islamophobia too. Really? I don't know of a single Middle Eastern person in this country who has felt that their life was in danger since right after 9/11. And then there was a legitimate concern about Islamophobia. Over the past 15 years, it hasn't existed for the most part. Meanwhile, you have Jews being threatened while they're just trying to take classes and go to school.
100%. I just wonder where our good Senator Richard Blumenthal is. He talked about the courts, and he talked about this. I've never heard him say a word. But isn't he, just like Claiborne for the blacks, isn't he yesterday's news? It's over. It's a past gone era. He's irrelevant. Both of them are irrelevant.
I mean, Blumenthal has been irrelevant since before he became a senator. Richard Blumenthal, again, for those of our listeners who are not familiar with him, was the Attorney General of Connecticut prior to being elected to the Senate. His big accomplishment was suing the tobacco companies. Since then, since his victory against big tobacco, he has done nothing positive either as Attorney General or as Senator for the state of Connecticut. But the deep blue constituency keeps him in office. So, yeah, I mean,
although it's interesting, Dr. Lopkin, he lost to someone that was less than a stellar candidate, and he lost not as significant as he usually, I mean, he won, not as significantly as he usually does. Plus, during that campaign, he's not a very popular senator, even in Connecticut. He just wins by default.
Yeah, it goes back to Pelosi's statement about being able to run a coffee cup with a D on it and winning. And now you're seeing a bigger split in the Democratic Party where the far left is lockstep behind Joe Biden. And their AOC actually made a comment, well, if you're not going to be behind Joe Biden, you should retire.
Mm-hmm.
So you're seeing the Democratic Party fighting among itself, which right now it can't afford to do.
Nope, but let's encourage it. Now, we did have the court case, the Smith case, that was at least thrown out for now. And I believe even with appeals, that's not going to reach the courts until the end of the election. But even with the case in New York, I find it hard to believe, Dr. Lopkin, that they're going to be able to put Donald Trump in jail. I find that hard to believe.
The lawfare has basically come to
Goodbye.
an end. The classified documents case in Georgia was dismissed. Jack Smith's office will appeal it, but honestly, I don't think it will be overturned on appeal. I think that's gone. The case in Georgia with Fani Willis,
the genius.
The appeals court has scheduled the appeal to decide whether or not Fani Willis can stay on the case. The hearing has been scheduled for December. So there's no way that's going to happen before the election. It's impossible.
And he's not going to be sentenced to New York.
Right.
There's no way.
Every other case has been put on hold. So they're all going to be after the election, which makes them.
Do you think numbnuts
difficult.
could actually put him in jail in New York? The guy, if you look at his picture, he's done about as much as hard work as Biden has in his whole life. Never saw more beautiful hands on a man.
I don't think he can put him in jail. I think there was a possibility of it prior to the Supreme Court decision that presidents do have limited immunity. The reason being, Alvin Bragg screwed up the case.
Oh, well.
In the Supreme Court, the decision basically said anything that a president is doing as part of his job is immune from prosecution. Now, the charges in the New York case were not part of the president's job, so he did not have immunity against those charges. However, the evidence that Bragg used was things that Donald Trump had been doing as president, and now all of that evidence has to be removed from the case. So either the judge is going to have to either declare a mistrial and have them try it all over again, which I don't think will carry water.
No.
Or he's going to have to sentence Trump to probation or something like that, which even that is going to be overturned on appeal.
There you go. Well, I find it very, very, very interesting, very amusing. And what I also found amusing, something that I actually watched because I have the summer off, the Lester Holt, and this is not, I know it's minor, but it's really not. So Uncle Joe had a recorded interview, whatever, conversation with Lester Holt. You can't get any more empathetic, sympathetic to Uncle Joe than that, right? If it's a precursor for the debate in September, how do you say check, please? he was incoherent, and he was belligerent. It's
Yeah.
yelling at Lester Holt.
After,
It was just unbelievable.
yeah, after his miserable performance at the debate, the campaign decided he needs to be out there more so that people can see that this was not typical of him.
And how
And
brilliant he is, yes.
he did the George Stephanopoulos interview, and immediately
Flame
after, George Stephanopoulos himself said Biden's not capable of doing the job.
No.
So the audience saw that it was not, the debate was not a fluke. Then he did Lester Holt to try to do more, to try to clean up the mess, and he just dug the hole further.
It was unbelievable.
The best thing that Joe Biden can do right now, if he intends to stay in the race, which apparently he does, would be to go back to the basement and let other people campaign for him.
I actually think, I know you meant that as kind of a joke, but I actually kind of agree with it.
Yeah, no,
the more he gets out there, and then you didn't see this, but it was I saw it just by chance again. So he did the Oval Office. No, it was, I can't even make this up. You got to scratch your head. So he gave the Oval Office address about the assassination, and it was way past his bedtime. It was probably 9. When he ended it, concluded it, he walked away, and it was like one of those bad 1950 movies, like Mummy from the Depths, or he had his hands out, taking one like you would as a kid, like pretending you're a mummy or whatever.
Yeah,
it was scary. Did you see it?
Yeah, it was very clear. They had to get him up. They had to get him medicated in order to make the statement. And it's also important that Biden's statement came after Trump himself had said he was okay, after Barack Obama made a statement, after the RNC, so many other people had made their statements because it took them time to get him prepared so that he could make a coherent statement.
100%.
What happened? I mean, this was bad enough that they had to, get him up to make a statement. What would have happened if it had been successful? Even worse, what if this had been an attack and they had to get him up, for the safety of the country?
Well, you're 100% correct, Dr. Lopkin. But isn't it another issue as well? No one gives a shit. Okay, like even Barack Obama, George W. Bush. There's a crisis. People wait to hear from the press. No one is waiting for Uncle Joe. Am I not correct? Please tell me.
You are. I honestly
no one is waiting for Uncle Joe.
I honestly think that Donald Trump needs to start airing Hillary Clinton's commercial from 2016, where she asked the question, who do you want woken up at 3 a.m. in a crisis?
You can't wake them up, I don't think. Well, you can if you give them some mapo and a little bit, maybe a little like cheese and crackers or something.
We make light of the situation, but the fact of the matter is, he is very clearly not in command.
Go on.
It's not just, he's a little fuzzy. He is not making the decisions. How many times have we heard him say, oh, they told me I can't do this. They told me to do that. He's obviously taking orders from somebody. He's obviously not making the decisions, which means the country is effectively being run by unelected bureaucrats.
No question about it. Many people suggest, Dr. Lopkin, that's what the hard left actually wants. And that's one of their big things about Biden is They want an unelected bureaucracy calling the shots, and they'd have accomplished that with Uncle Joe, haven't they?
They do want that. It's not even something that people are, whispering about. And this is why to solidify his left-wing base and keep them supporting him, Biden announced yesterday that he would support changes to the regulations for the Supreme Court, because the left has been apoplectic about the Supreme Court's decisions. Never mind the fact that the majority of decisions that this Supreme Court has passed have come around as either 9-0 or 8-1. This has not been a conservative pushed court. But because the Supreme Court struck down the Chevron decision that said that the bureaucrats have to be assumed to be experts in their fields, and when a decision goes to the court, they have the upper hand, the Supreme Court just struck that down. So the bureaucrats are no longer able to pass regulations without being challenged in court. The left thinks this is an abomination. They don't want the American public deciding who runs the country. They want unelected bureaucrats that they've been able to put in office over the last 12 years to run the country.
And no question, there's a bigger point to that I found it. The Swanee said that in an interview, that even if people have, let's say, or president, legislature has legislation initiatives, it's left to these bureaucrats that might actually implement 180 degrees different.
Yes, that's very true. Nancy Pelosi said it best when she was talking about Obamacare. We have to pass it to see what's in it. The reason for that statement is that the original Obamacare bill had far-reaching implications and far-reaching goals, but it did not specify how to reach those goals. The process in how these laws are implemented are very often left to these bureaucrats to do.
Yes. Well, speaking of dear Nancy, who's also, by the way, senile, I hate to break it to you, and basically she said to an African-American reporter, can you speak English? If that was a Republican, well, that's another show. But she's on the phone now. She's dialing for dollars. Do you know that, Dr. Lopkins?
Oh, well, they all are. I mean, publicly, it took a pause after the assassination, but that pause was short-lived. The Democratic Party is still scrambling to figure out if they can push Biden out, if they're going to be stuck with them, how do they survive his campaign? The Democrats were originally going to have a virtual roll call. I believe it was originally scheduled for next week to nominate Joe Biden rather than doing it at the convention. Now, the reason for this was legal. It was because the state of Ohio has their deadline for the candidates' registration before the Democratic convention is being held. This has been a long-standing deadline, but this year the Democratic convention is actually being held later than usual because of the Olympics. I believe they decided to push it back. Well, Ohio decided they would push back their deadline till after the convention. So the Democrats no longer have the reason to have this virtual roll call. As of today, the DNC still plans on nominating Biden via virtual roll call next week. And there are a whole bunch of Democrats who have signed on to a letter to the DNC saying there is no legal justification for this anymore. We don't have to nominate him until the convention. Why? Because that gives them more time to figure out if they can get rid of him.
I would agree. It'll be interesting. But, I want you to sleep well at night. You know that, Dr. Lopkin. So with all the assassination investigations, I know you'll sleep well, that the FBI, the purveyors of the dossier, Steele dossier, that the laptop wasn't real, is going to get to the absolute bottom of the assassination. Doesn't that make you feel a lot better?
Yeah, the FBI that was prevented from investigating Hunter Biden, that claimed the laptop was Russian disinformation, that that lied to a FISA court so they could wiretap Donald Trump while he was running for office in 2016. These are the people responsible for getting to the bottom of the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. These are the same people, if you remember, FBI agents texted each other saying, "We will make sure he's not elected."
Yes, and the same group that with the trans shooter just conveniently kind of left that out. So I'm very confident that we'll get to the rock bottom of it all, won't we?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think if anybody's going to get to the bottom of this, it's going to be the local authorities in Pennsylvania. And I actually do have a lot of faith in them. I think they will uncover anything that needs to be uncovered.
Good point. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I think, thank God they were there, and they might embarrass the FBI. How do you like that?
Well,
the Pennsylvania
there's a
State
long
Police.
Well, I'm not sure if it's the state police or if it's the local authorities within Butler, Pennsylvania itself.
Yes.
But there are long-standing rivalries between local jurisdictions and the FBI. So, I mean, the state police or the local authorities within Butler, them being able to show up the FBI isn't exactly going to, make them cry.
Excellent. Another great show, a lot on the docket, and Dr. Lopkin, our listeners can contribute to the program, can't they?
Yes, they can. Go to the Carnivore Radio Facebook page. Messages there. We want to hear from you. You can also go to xvadio.com/connect and let us know your thoughts there. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Bites at xvadio.com, the Carnivore Radio website, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. We will be back next week.
We'll see you then.